I thought I was losing my mind. It started slowly, just a bit of nausea at night, then the stomach cramps, the sweating, the shaking, vomiting so hard I'd cry into the toilet bowl, and yet every single morning I'd feel almost fine again. I went to doctors. They told me it might be stress or hormones, or maybe something in my diet, but the only constant was dinner, and the man cooking it. My husband always acted so sweet. He'd bring me tea while I lay in bed shivering. He'd press a cold towel to my forehead and whisper, "Poor thing, maybe you're overworked." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. What kind of person suspects the man they love? But something felt wrong. It wasn't just the pain. It was the way it always happened after dinner. Every single night, like clockwork. And one night, I tasted something strange, just for a second. A bitter, almost almond flavor. It passed quickly. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was nothing. But that's the moment I stopped trusting my food. I started pretending to eat, moving food around the plate, spitting bits into a napkin when he looked away. I even fed some to the dog once when he wasn't in the room. And when I didn't get sick that night, my stomach dropped for a different reason. It wasn't the food. It was him. Still, I didn't say anything. I needed proof. I needed time. So I waited, terrified, acting normal while my mind screamed every time he handed me a plate. Then one night, our daughter, Lily, did something she wasn't supposed to. She reached across the table, giggling, and took a big bite from my plate before I could stop her. My heart froze. He looked up. I saw it in his eyes, that flash of panic he tried to cover with a smile. And then Lily said, "Tastes weird, Mummy," and laughed. 10 minutes later, she was curled up on the kitchen floor, crying and clutching her stomach. That's when I knew. There was no more pretending. My husband poisoned me every night, but tonight, he poisoned his own daughter. When I first met Daniel, he felt like a dream, the kind of man you don't expect to find anymore. Thoughtful, gentle, charming in a quiet way. He wasn't loud or flashy like the men I used to date. He listened. He remembered things I said. He brought me flowers just because, not just on holidays. And when he asked me to marry him after a year, I didn't even hesitate. In the beginning, our life felt like one of those cozy romance movies. We moved into a little house in the suburbs. He cooked. I worked from home. And every Friday night, we'd cuddle on the couch with a glass of wine and some old movie we'd seen a dozen times. Looking back now, I realized the signs were there. At first, it was little things. He didn't like my best friend, Katie. He said she was too loud, too negative. Then he started suggesting I didn't need to go to my mum's every Sunday anymore. "You're always so tired after," he'd say. "It's okay to take a break." He never forbade anything. That was his trick. He suggested. He made it seem like he was doing me a favor, looking out for me, and I believed him. When I stopped calling my sister as often, he said, "You've been so much more peaceful lately." When I turned down a weekend trip with friends, he smiled and said, "I love having you here with me." It felt like love, but it was a slow, quiet erasing of my life outside him. The first time I got sick, we'd been married a little over a year. It was after a roast chicken dinner. I was curled up on the bathroom floor, sweating through my clothes, shaking so hard I couldn't stand. Daniel sat next to me, holding my hair back, whispering how sorry he was. "Must have been something bad in the chicken," he said. "You poor thing." I didn't think twice, but it kept happening. Not every night, just enough that I didn't make the connection at first. And every time, he was there, rubbing my back, bringing me water, treating me like a fragile little thing he needed to protect. Until I noticed it was only happening after meals he made, only when it was just us, and only when I was the only one eating it. When I suggested maybe I needed to see a specialist, he laughed lightly. "Don't let Google scare you. You know how your anxiety is." That was the first time I felt that little twist in my gut. Not from illness, something colder. Doubt. It was like waking up in a house where all the doors were locked and you didn't realize someone had been sealing the windows shut for years. Daniel wasn't who I thought he was, and I had no idea what he was truly capable. I started keeping a notebook. At first, it was just a list of what I ate each night. Then I began recording the time symptoms started, how long they lasted, how bad they were. I even started noting what Daniel ate, if anything. He usually claimed he'd already eaten, or said he wasn't hungry. I told myself it was just a habit, but the pattern made my skin crawl. Every dinner, I got sicker. Every dinner, he watched me. I told a few friends what was happening. in vague terms. One of them, a nutritionist, suggested maybe I had developed a sudden food allergy. Another thought it might be an autoimmune thing, like lupus. I went through rounds of blood tests. Nothing came back. I was perfectly healthy, according to the doctors, which only made me feel crazier. Daniel took that opportunity to step in. "Maybe you just need simpler food," he said one night, gently taking the spatula from my hand. "Why don't I cook for a while, just until we figure this out?" It sounded thoughtful, helpful, and at first, I welcomed the break, but his control tightened fast. He started making every single meal, breakfast included. He insisted it would help narrow things down. "We'll monitor everything," he said. "We'll track it." Only he never got sick, and he never shared a plate with me. When I offered to cook or even split the meals, half and half, he'd wave me off with a smile. No, just let me take care of you." It stopped feeling romantic. It started to feel like a setup. And any time I suggested ordering takeout or going out for dinner, he found a reason not to. "Too greasy. Your stomach can't handle it. You don't want to feel sick again, do you?" Eventually I stopped asking. But inside, I knew something was wrong. This wasn't just about food. It wasn't about health. It was control, quiet, soft, and absolute. I kept writing in that notebook, every night, every detail, because I was starting to believe that if I didn't, I might not make it to the end of the week. Dinner time used to be our favorite time together. Now, it felt like Russian roulette. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. I had told Daniel I'd be late, that I had a meeting, but it ended early. I thought I'd surprise him, walk in, give him a hug from behind like we used to, maybe pretend things were normal for just one moment. The kitchen smelled like garlic and something sweet. He was standing at the counter, focused, his back to me. Then I saw it. A small amber glass bottle in his hand. He had the cap off and was shaking something into the sauce simmering on the stove. His movements were quick, careful, almost secretive. When I stepped into the kitchen, he jolted like I'd slapped him. The bottle vanished into his pocket in one smooth motion. I stared at him. "What's that?" I asked, nodding toward his hand. He smiled too fast. "Oh, just seasoning. Something new I picked up. Smoked paprika. Thought I'd try it in the sauce." He pulled it back out, held it up. No label. My stomach dropped, but I nodded slowly. "Smells good," I said. He relaxed a little, turned back to the stove, stirring the pot like nothing had happened. I didn't eat that night. I told him I had a headache and needed to lie down. He looked disappointed but didn't push. After he went to bed, I snuck back into the kitchen. I found the bottle in the drawer beneath the sink, tucked behind some dish towels. Still no label. The powder inside was fine, almost pinkish. It didn't smell like paprika. I scraped a little into a plastic sandwich bag, sealed it, and tucked it inside my purse. The next day, I sent it to a friend of mine, Jenna, who was studying pharmacology. I didn't tell her the full story, just said I found something strange in my kitchen and needed to know what it was. She promised to run a few tests. The weight nearly broke me. Every night, I acted normal, smiled at the table, pretended to eat, talked about TV shows and laundry and plans for the weekend, all the while wondering if tonight was the night he'd notice I hadn't actually swallowed anything. If tonight was the night he'd stop pretending too. 3 days later, Jenna called. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice low, serious. "Why?" I said, already knowing. "It's arsenic," she said. "Low dose. Not enough to kill you immediately, but enough to make you sick. Enough to do real damage over time." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there clutching the phone, staring at my untouched dinner plate. He was trying to kill me, and I had proof, but now I had to figure out what to do next, without him suspecting a thing. Knowing the truth didn't make anything easier, it made everything worse. The lab results were clear. Arsenic, small amounts, just enough to make me sick, but not enough to kill me right away. He was dosing me slowly, carefully, over time, like boiling a frog, like I wouldn't notice until it was too late. I wanted to scream, to run, to grab Lily and leave that night, but I couldn't. He was too smart, too calm. If he even sensed I knew, I didn't know what he'd do next. So I smiled. I kissed him goodnight. I played the perfect wife, even though my stomach was twisting in knots. This time from fear, not poison. I knew I needed more than a sample and suspicion. I needed undeniable proof, evidence that couldn't be explained away, something the police couldn't ignore. So I started switching plates. Not every night, just sometimes. just enough to see what would happen. I'd wait until he stepped away, then casually trade mine for his. I watched his eyes closely every time he took a bite. Most nights, he made an excuse not to eat, not hungry, or already had a snack earlier. But once, when he wasn't paying attention and took a bite from the plate meant for me, he froze, just for a second, then he pushed the plate away. "I don't like this one," he said flatly. I recorded that night with a small camera I'd hidden behind the toaster, and every dinner after that, I recorded again. Meanwhile, Lily had started to notice. She was 6, too young to understand, but not too young to see things were off. "Why do you always get different food than me and Daddy?" she asked one night, poking at her pasta. "Is yours special?" I smiled, swallowing hard. "Just a different recipe, sweetie." She tilted her head. "Can I try some?" My heart stuttered. "No," I said, a little too fast. "Mommy's food isn't for sharing." She frowned but went back to eating. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake, holding onto Lily's little hand as she slept beside me and thought, if I don't end this soon, he won't stop. He was patient, careful, deadly, but I was learning too, and I wasn't going to die quietly. It was a Friday evening, and Lily had spent the whole day buzzing with energy. She'd made a paper crown at school and wore it proudly all afternoon, announcing herself as Queen Lily and insisting that royalty must dine with both parents, together, at the table, no exceptions. Daniel laughed stiffly. "Of course, princess." He always got twitchy when plans changed. He busied himself in the kitchen, more focused than usual, measuring out ingredients too precisely for something as simple as spaghetti. I watched from the hallway, pretending to scroll through my phone, while my heart pounded in my ears. He plated our meals carefully. 3 dishes. Mine came last, as always. He placed it in front of me with a strange kind of softness, too gentle, too deliberate. Then Lily climbed into her seat and grinned at both of us. "This is nice," she said, "like a real family dinner." Daniel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I could see a bead of sweat at his temple. He barely touched his fork. I barely touched mine either. I was planning to switch plates when he stepped away, like I'd done before. But before I could move, Lily reached across the table. "Can I have a bite of yours, Mommy?" It happened so fast. Her fork stabbed into my spaghetti, and before I could say a word, she was chewing. Daniel froze, just for a second, but I saw it, that flicker of panic, that flash of something cold and calculating behind his eyes. Then he smiled again. "She's such a curious girl," he said. I forced a smile too, my fingers trembling under the table. I didn't eat. I couldn't. 10 minutes later, Lily clutched her stomach. She groaned. "Mommy, my tummy hurts." I dropped to my knees beside her just as she started to vomit. It was violent, sudden, and scary. Her face went pale, her little hands shaking. I wrapped my arms around her, my own stomach flipping with terror and rage. Daniel jumped up, grabbing napkins, his voice too loud, too rehearsed. "It must have been something bad in the food. Maybe a bad batch of sauce?" I didn't say anything, not yet. He kept talking, rambling about maybe calling the restaurant, even though we'd cooked at home. He tried to spin it fast, twist the narrative before I could, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was already dialing 911, and in that moment, watching him fumble through his lies while our daughter cried in my arms, I knew he had just poisoned the wrong person. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was war. While Lily was being treated in the ER, I sat beside her, stroking her hair and whispering that everything would be okay, even though I wasn't sure myself. She was stable now. The doctors had flushed her system quickly. They were still running tests, but one of them had already said the symptoms didn't look like a virus or regular food poisoning. That's when I leaned in closer and said quietly, "I think my husband poisoned her, and he's been poisoning me too." The nurse froze. Then she nodded and said, "Wait right here." I stayed by Lily while the doctor came back, this time with a hospital social worker and 2 men in suits, probably detectives, though no one said it out loud yet. "I have something," I told them. "Video, from our kitchen." They looked at each other. One of them asked gently, "Can we see it?" I'd hidden a tiny camera weeks earlier, tucked behind the coffee maker. It wasn't much, just a cheap one that recorded on a loop, but it was enough. I'd copied the files onto a flash drive and kept it in my purse, just in case I ever needed to run. Now I handed it over. They watched the footage in a back room while I sat in silence, holding Lily's tiny hand. I didn't need to see it again. I already knew what was there. Daniel in the kitchen, back turned, carefully opening a small bottle, tipping powder into one plate, stirring it in, looking over his shoulder before putting the bottle away. He only ever touched my food. When the doctor returned, his face was hard. Thank you for sharing that, he said. We've notified the authorities. They'll take it from here. I nodded. My mouth was dry. My hands still shook. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something like relief. Daniel had lied so easily, so many times. He had planned it all so carefully, but he forgot one thing. I was watching him too. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not the temperature, just the feeling. The walls were pale grey, the lights too bright, the silence heavy. Daniel sat across from me, wearing a suit he used to wear to weddings, like he was still pretending to be a husband instead of a man on trial for attempted murder. He wouldn't look at me. He just stared straight ahead, jaw tight, eyes blank. His defense team went first. They painted me as unstable, paranoid, emotionally fragile. They brought up old doctor visits, where I complained of stress or fatigue. They even showed texts I'd sent years ago where I'd mentioned having a bad mental health day. Like that somehow made me a liar. Daniel took the stand and told the court I'd been acting strange, that I'd grown cold, that I must have snapped. He said I poisoned myself for attention, then gave some soft, rehearsed speech about how heartbreaking it was that I was now accusing him. He even cried, or tried to, but the prosecution came in like a wrecking ball. They laid everything out, clear, calm, and devastating. The timeline from the first symptoms, the ER visit, the powder found in my system and in Lily's, the lab-confirmed presence of arsenic, then the footage. The jury watched as Daniel, their quiet, concerned husband, took a small amber bottle and tipped powder into just one plate. My plate. They played it twice. No one made a sound. Then came the biggest reveal of all, the motive. He'd known about the trust fund my mother left me. Over $500,000, locked away unless I died or we divorced. The prosecutors showed bank records. Daniel had recently made inquiries about accessing it. He'd even searched life insurance payouts. He didn't want a messy divorce. He wanted me gone, quietly, cleanly, without suspicion. But the real turning point came when Lily took the stand. She was small in that big chair, legs swinging, holding a teddy bear the court clerk had let her bring. She didn't understand everything, but she told the truth simply. I took a bite from Mommy's food, then I got sick. Did Daddy tell you not to eat Mommy's food? The lawyer asked. She nodded. He said it was grown-up food. He always said that. I watched Daniel's face as she spoke. For the first time, he cracked. He looked down, then away, then finally at me. I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. He knew it was over. After the trial, I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. The day Daniel was sentenced, I sat in the courtroom and watched the judge say the words I'd been waiting to hear. 40 years without parole, attempted murder, endangering a child, no chance of early release. I didn't cry. I didn't clap. I just nodded. Lily wasn't there. She was staying with my parents by then, safe in the quiet countryside, surrounded by people who loved her. She played outside every day, fed the neighbors' chickens, and didn't ask about her father anymore. I didn't offer answers she didn't want. When I finally packed up our old house, I did it quickly. I didn't want to look at the couch where we used to sit, the table where he served me poison with a smile, the bed where I once thought I was safe. I threw most of it away. The rest I burned. No photos, no furniture, no souvenirs. I moved into a smaller place, somewhere clean, with white walls and big windows, and no memories. I bought new dishes, new sheets, new clothes. I even cut my hair. It wasn't about starting over. It was about removing every trace of the trap I'd once called love. Some nights, I still lie awake and wonder how long he'd planned it, if he ever loved me at all, if he looked at Lily and saw his daughter, or just another piece of leverage. But those thoughts don't linger long. I don't let them, because I survived. I doubted myself for months, told myself I was imagining things, that I was overreacting, that maybe he was just trying to help me, that maybe I was the crazy one, but I wasn't. He was just really, really good at pretending. Now, when something feels wrong, I listen. I don't brush it aside. I don't explain it away. He tried to break me quietly, over time. He wanted me sick, weak, and gone before I could fight back. But I fought, and my revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was surviving. It was waking up every morning, watching Lily laugh again, making breakfast without fear, sitting down at the table and knowing I'll walk away from it. That's enough. Every night, I set 2 plates on the table, one for me and one that stays empty. It's not for Daniel. It's not some soft gesture of mourning. It's a reminder, a quiet statement that I made it through, that I saw the truth and live to tell it. People don't always understand. They ask if I miss him. I don't. I miss the person I thought he was, the one who brought me flowers, who held my hand when I was scared, who smiled like I was his world. But that version of him never really existed. It was just a costume. The empty plate reminds me not of love lost, but of lies exposed. There was a time when I sat at that table every night, feeling my stomach twist in pain and fear, trying to convince myself that it was just stress, or maybe bad luck. A time when I smiled through dinner, nodding along to his stories, pretending to be fine while my body betrayed me. Now I sit with peace. Lily and I eat together most nights. She laughs again. She tells me about her drawings and what bugs she saw in the yard, and what her teacher said at school. She doesn't talk about her father. I don't make her. Sometimes she glances at the empty plate and asks why I still set it. I always say the same thing. Because it's mine. It means something to me. And she nods, satisfied, not needing more than that. One day, when she's older, I'll explain. I'll tell her everything. I'll tell her how I almost died not because I was weak, but because I trusted too hard. How I stayed silent too long. How the danger wore a gentle face. And how I fought back, not with violence or anger, but with truth, with proof, with patience. Some people say revenge is about making the other person suffer. I don't think that's true. My revenge is this life, quiet, whole, honest. My revenge is setting that empty plate every night, knowing it used to be a trap, and now it's a trophy. For every woman who doubts her gut, for every wife who wonders if she's just imagining things, for every mother who feels fear but doesn't yet know why. That plate is for you, because he tried to kill me with poison, but he didn't know I was the antidote.